Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we're going to talk about a guitar that packs a punch, the Les Paul Raw Power. And that's actually a model name that Gibson has used multiple times. It's kind of confusing if you didn't know the full history of these, so I hope to enlighten some of you guys about this very unique, interesting guitar today. But before we do that, what is my personal story on this one? I've been looking for one of these for about 3 years, just waiting for the right one, and I just happened to see it on eBay one night. I believe it was at a pawn shop. They said it was mint condition, so I clicked on the photos. I was looking at it going, ooh, is that the one I want to document? And I decided, yes, I do. So here's to hoping that all that is true, because I'm tempted to keep this, but I'm kind of on the fence as of right now. But let's go ahead and open up this Gibson Les Paul Raw Power Studio. So first off, we get this beautiful black interior case with a case shroud, which normally I associate with the early 2000s, but let's take a look at this thing. Oh, wow. That is blindingly bright. Oh, this is beautiful, guys. It's a little bit obnoxiously maple in your face, but that is the whole point of the Raw Power series. So first things first, we get the natural maple satin finish right here. It's just a clear coat over the maple top. We even have a maple body on this thing, a maple neck, and look at this, a maple fretboard. That's what makes a Raw Power Studio a Raw Power Studio. Satin finish, completely maple constructed guitar. I mean, we don't even have to have any asterisks on this because they would have had to have used maple for the truss rod channel cap as well. And besides somebody taking off the pickguard and filling the original holes, this really is ridiculously clean. The reason why it took me so long to find one is I'm very particular with maple fretboard guitars. They have to have no lacquer wear. Now this one isn't no lacquer wear, there is a little bit right here, but I didn't know that was there, and everything else, I mean, it really does feel like it has not been played too much. So let's learn a little bit about the Raw Power now. The Raw Power series can be kind of confusing because it was actually used in the early 2000s and the late 2000s. So the first year, 2000 into about 2001, there was something called the Raw Power Standard. It had a beautiful natural satin finish and really hot 496R 500T pickups. That's why they called it the Raw Power. Satin finish, stripped down, bare bones, rockin' hot pickups. It was essentially the precursor to the Les Paul Standard Faded, but as far as wood choices, it was just your regular stuff. Rosewood fretboard, mahogany neck, maple top, mahogany back. But then, in 2009, Gibson reuses the Raw Power branding in these new Les Paul Studio and SG variants. Now, perhaps the biggest thing that'll catch your attention on these guys is the fact that they have a maple fretboard and maple bodies. In fact, they are all completely maple, but they don't have hot pickups. They actually have classic pickups, 57 classics to be exact. They also featured the satin finish on almost every single model. And one quirky thing I've always loved about these guys is the 12th fret inlay. For some reason, it's a trapezoid. I don't know why, but it's a quirky spec. I like it. But perhaps the other thing that makes this series so interesting is the fact that it was offered in so many colors. You've got satin white, satin natural, you've got satin yellow, you've got a satin blue / platinum. Kind of just looks like a budget silver burst, but with a little bit of a blue tinge to it. Satin gold. There was an olive green. Satin aquamarine, which is like kind of a green color. You've got satin trans ebony, even a platinum silver. And then apparently there's a gloss platinum out there. So within the Les Paul lineup, you can actually find gold or chrome hardware depending on which of those finishes you got. And all those colors ran true with the SG model as well, except for they had chrome only because they had the uncovered pickup. So I'll be honest, I thought all three of those models came out at roughly the same amount of time. So I always kind of look down upon the Raw Power standards because it's like, total missed opportunity to make them all maple as well, but just have them be Les Paul Standard formatted. But now that I know these things came nearly 10 years later, you know, from 2009 till about 2012, it makes sense that these things are so different. So there's actually a little bit of a cult behind these guitars. They like them because they're so unique, and they offer some pretty cool tones due to their construction. And generally these things get really beat up, so to find one as clean as this, I'm quite happy. But first impressions on this thing, yeah, it's the satin finished Les Paul Studio. I mean, it kind of feels like a Telecaster in a weird roundabout way, just seeing all this maple. And if you don't like this whole naked look to it, obviously you've got all those other colors that you can choose from. But if I was going to document one of these, I wanted it to be natural so we could see all the maple. That way, when I review the SG, I can get my favorite kind of blue silver burst one. So to learn more about this guitar, let's go ahead, throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs before we sit down for a playing demo. Inside the Raw Power Studio, let's take a look at this thing. So the gold is in pretty darn good shape on these pickup covers. I'm not going to say perfect, because if you really look at it, there's like maybe a little bit of pitting or just some wear to them. But from far away, they look awesome. But the spec sheets did not lie on this one. We've got a 57 Classic in the neck that's missing its decal. And our bridge position still has the decal and is also a regular 57 Classic. No 57 Classic Plus yet. We have NS handwritten in here in marker, likely standing for Natural Satin. And then LPSRP, Les Paul Studio Raw Power. Now, as is typical in the Henry J era, you get some fuzzy fuzzies over here from the dull router bits and not fully cleaning them up. But that's easy enough to take them out yourself if you really want to. But it's really cool to see an all maple Les Paul. You don't see that every day. Because you still have a true maple top right here, that's two pieces, but then you get the joining of the maple body too. So kind of a cool cross section today. As far as pickup readings within the circuit, for fun, the middle is about 4, which means the other one should be around 8.37 k ohms in our bridge, and 7.6 in the neck. That's interesting. So despite being a 57 Classic, it actually almost has plus style readings. So this is a regular Nashville style bridge with posts and studs in the body. And the bridge itself just looks like this. A little bit of wear to the gold, but not too much. PW branded right there. Here's what our tailpiece is looking like. You can see some of the gold has been kind of rubbed off on this. It's not as golden as it could possibly be. And this is what it looks like on the back. As far as our controls, looks like 2 volumes, 2 tones, as you normally find on a Les Paul, but they're black speed knobs. And at one point in time, there was a plain black 1-ply pickguard on this. Someone decided they didn't like it, so they filled those in. To be honest, if I end up keeping this, I'll probably just end up putting it back on because I think this looks a little bit too naked. I kind of like the black pickguard. It breaks up some of the monotony and it matches all the other black plastics. Now, I'm sure this would probably look very angelic if you were to cream plastic this out. Maybe check out my Angel Les Paul Custom. But as far as the body, I mean, this thing is just very clean. Satin finishes, if you play them at all, they buff up and they turn into a semi-gloss, but this one doesn't have that. It still feels just like it did brand new. You've got some interesting eye wood grain formations here, but the rest of it's just kind of pretty tight pinstriping. Maybe not the coolest one in the wood grain factor, but it's nice, it's nice. But take a look at the sides right here. I love that cross section. You can see the maple top joined onto the maple body. A whole bunch of wood grainage going on with a little bit of flamed figuring. I guess in theory, you could find one of these with a flamed top if it just happened to, be a flame maple top, maybe a flame maple body, maybe even flame in the neck. It's possible on this model because a lot of times it's just the luck of the draw if one of that gets used on one of these. Just in case you didn't know, back in the 70s and early 80s, Gibson actually did have maple fretboard Les Paul Customs out there, and they would be beautiful and lacquered. However, you can also find 2000s era customs like that are the same, as well as in the Richlight era, where people just decided, well, I'd rather have maple than Richlight. But in that era, Gibson did not lacquer the fretboards. I'm happy to say this at least has a satin finish over it, so I don't hate it as much as the unfinished feeling of maple. I really hate it when maple is unfinished. It doesn't feel good on a fretboard. So the Les Pauls get 22 medium jumbo style frets. We have some serious fret sprout on this example. Like, yeah, that probably needs to be addressed. Those are pretty sharp. However, I thought the frets kind of looked dull, so I went ahead and polished them. Now, my metal polish ends up turning everything black, so I was really scared for a second that, no, the fretboard's going to get stained. But no, that all cleaned off, and now these frets probably look even better than they did brand new. Very happy that I made that decision today. But in doing so, not only is there this area of wear to the satin finish, but I was able to find a small area right here as well. That's such a shame because I was looking and waiting to document one that doesn't have fretboard wear. That's just an OCD thing for me, I guess. I hate that on the maple boarded guitars. Now, it looks good when it has like an excessive amount, but I'm talking for like my collector piece that's, 100% mint condition. I don't want any of that. Worn in maple boards do look cool, but generally you have to have it really worn in to make it look good. And yes, indeed, that is a maple fretboard joined onto a maple neck. That would be cool to see a Gibson done up in Fender styling of just straight maple and put the frets into the neck. But I love the inlays on this model. I know it's quirky and kind of weird to have just one trapezoid in here and the rest be dots, but it's another defining feature of this particular model. And they look really nice. I like the look of mother of pearl on maple, especially because they kind of yellowed them. Some manufacturers will put black dots or black inlays on these. And yeah, that has a vibe too, but this is more of an acquired taste because, I like the 70s ones. But what I really like on this example too is we've got a lot of wood grain just within the fretboard itself. Lots of character marks right here, and that's why I love in guitars. But anyways, 22 medium jumbo style frets, 24 3/4 inch scale length, 12 inch fretboard radius, nut width of 1.67 inches, 12th fret 2.07, first fret neck depth 0.84, and by the 12th 0.97. Here's what that neck profile looks like at the first fret and the 12th fret, just your standard C-shaped neck. I wouldn't say it's overly slim, but definitely more on the slim side, but it's got a little bit to it, kind of an in-betweener neck, closer to 60s. Now, moving on to the face of our headstock, it is also a satin finish. I wish these would have got mother of pearl logos, but they're just silk screens, Les Paul model, all that good stuff with nice Kluson tuners. And it looks like our truss rod is in 100% perfect condition. What's kind of cool is on the headstock, if you look at just the right angle, you can actually see through to the wood grain, which you can't always do on a Gibson model. Very prevalent right there with the straight lines. Moving on to the backside, I love the look of this because it's so freaky. You don't see full-sized Les Pauls made of maple too often. Especially the back. I mean, you always have it on the top for the most part, but the back, that's a cool sight. Another model that's very similar to this one in construction is the Music City Junior. But that's got like a B-bender and P90 pickups. It's more so a Telecaster and a Les Paul body. But this is a two-piece maple back, and it is a solid body. So you'd think this would be like really ridiculously heavy. I mean, it's got a good weight to it. We'll measure it here at the end. But it's not too bad for being solid body. So we've got some cool wood grain going on here. The back finish is nice and satin smooth, and here's what our electronics look like. No PCB or anything like that, just Gibson branded, all hand wired point to point. Looking nice and clean. Black output jack on the side. You can see our golden strap buttons in our usual locations, and here is our toggle switch cavity. Another one that just looks pretty interesting being all maple. As far as the edges go, you get a whole bunch of wood grain over here too. And you can see the maple top right here. I like the way that they kind of make V's right there. Cool. So maybe not the prettiest maple in the world, but at least it's got wood grain. This made me really excited though. I thought it was just a one-piece maple neck. No, it's three pieces. 1, 2, 3. It's a little easier to see the seam lines right here because these pieces actually blend together really well. Now this feels like it's been played into more of a semi-gloss right here, so maybe not the 100% most perfect example in the world, but trust me, these are hard to find in clean condition because they weren't particularly expensive or marketed as collector's guitars at first, and people buy these because they love the way they sound. But up here on the back of the headstock, you can definitely feel what it would have been originally. So this was definitely lovingly cared for and played. We've got our golden Gibson Deluxe tuners right here. Made in USA, year 2009 stamped in there. Then we have our serial number. The 190th day of 2009. Initial batch, ooh, 500 first in production. Technically, there is a 500. Nashville numbers start at 500. So even though it looks like it's the first one, technically 500 is the first one of the day. So this was the second one of the day stamped. But even the top of the headstock's pretty clean on this one. Quick blacklight test here. Everything's looking even on our headstock. This time, even our fretboard gets to glow. This would be another way to see any areas of wear right there. You can see the wood grain a little bit more clearly. That other area of wear. So it looks like just those two areas to me. Body has an ultimately even glow. All good. Then the back, looking good. Moving up the neck, you can definitely tell the gloss. You see the sheen of the lights right there versus it's a more dull look right here. That's a good way to see the difference. But everything is looking peachy. All said and done, this one weighs 8 pounds, 4.1 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. Alright, let's go ahead and run through the tones of this through the Marshall Blues Breaker, starting with our neck position. Alright, let's go ahead and try some distortion. Now that we know all about the Les Paul Studio Raw Power, what are my final thoughts on this thing? It's a very cool guitar, right? All maple. It's a very bright sounding instrument as well. If you play one of these, you might need to dial your amp in a little bit differently than other guitars because maple is known for apparently making a guitar brighter, is what I've heard and kind of what I experienced here. It's a comfortable guitar though. This satin finish makes it real easy to play. I can definitely see how people wear the lacquer off the fretboard of this pretty easily. I mean, just playing it a little bit, I can feel how it kind of gives. So it kind of has a natural, nice feel to it. I definitely prefer at least some sort of a little satin finish over the fretboard rather than that raw maple feel. This felt good to me. However, at the same time, it doesn't really feel like a Les Paul because when you're looking down here, you get the maple neck all bare and exposed like that. It makes me feel like I'm just playing a completely different instrument, but I think some of that comes down to just the natural finish choice. Now, if you get one that has like some exotic colors on it, then maybe it'll feel more Les Paul-like in that attribute. But I thought the tones were pretty good. That neck pickup is nice and screaming. It's great for that lead work on the distorted channel. The bridge has some nice bite to it. It would have been nice had this model had like some coil splitting because then you could get some single coil-esque tones out of it. So overall, maybe not a model for everybody out there, but if you're looking for something that's just a little bit out of the ordinary, you've got 20 other Les Pauls in your collection, maybe consider picking one of these things up or check out the SG version. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.